Mars has become a graveyard for robots. More than half of the 47 missions so far have ended in failures of various kinds. But we humans just love throwing robots at Mars. There have been 1 or 2 missions every couple of years for the past 2 decades. But this month alone, there have been 3 separate missions. Tianwen1 from China, Perseverance from the US, and Hope from the UAE. So what's going on out there? Well, the launching window in July offers a great saving on fuel. Like airlines, space agencies want to find the shortest route to Mars, but it's not when the 2 planets are at their closest as you might think. Well, the solar system is constantly shifting. Every time Mars completes a single orbit, Earth goes around the Sun almost twice. That makes space travel far more complicated than a straight line on Earth. Actually, if you launch when 2 planets are at their closest distance, a point known as Mars opposition, your robots may never get to Mars. Instead, scientists will patiently wait for a time when Mars has a head start. Then they will not aim the spacecraft towards where the Mars is at a launch time, because by the time you get there, the Mars will have already moved right here. Instead, they need to point it somewhere ahead, and where Mars is going to be when you arrive. This orbit has been called the Tianwen transfer orbit, which was first proposed in 1925. Everything needs to be calculated carefully because this launch window happens for just a few weeks every 26 months. Now the window is open, and missing it means 2 more years of waiting. Well, transfer orbit will take Tianwen 7 months to travel hundreds of millions of kilometers. Choosing a shorter way would ironically require more fuel. The best things about this orbit is that theoretically, the propulsion system just needs to kick in twice during the trip to get off Earth at the beginning and catch up Mars when it's the approachest. And you should barely use fuel in between. When it's getting a bit more closer, at about 400 kilometers away from Mars, it needs to slow down in time so that it can be captured by the planet's gravity and become a satellite of it, or it may miss Mars forever. Landing on Mars is no easy feat, even for a small robot like Tianwen1. Unlike the Moon, where China has land experience, Mars has twice the surface gravity, an atmosphere, and is littered with dense rock, which makes the landing efforts much more risky. After orbiting for a certain time, the lander will separate and prepare to dive. It needs to find a perfect angle to hit. Too shallow, and Tianwen would bounce off and tumble into the deeper space. Too steep, and it would burn up before reaching the surface. 5 minutes of free dive, and Mars' atmosphere will slow Tianwen from 4.8 kilometers per second to 460 meters per second. Then it deploys its parachute to further slow it down to 100 meters per second in less than 2 minutes. Then it will inject the bulky heat shield, but it'll still be too heavy to reach a safe landing speed. So it needs to activate its small rocket engines. They will further slow it down until the lander can hover at about 100 meters above the ground before a nice, gentle touchdown. If everything goes well, about a week later, China's rover will take its first steps on Mars. It all starts when a craft hits the atmosphere. Then the landing process will take 7 to 8 minutes, during which over 1,000 different maneuvers need to be accomplished. But that alone cannot explain why the Americans call it the 7 minutes of terror. Don't forget, even at the closest distance, we and Mars are about over 50 million kilometers apart, or over 6 minutes for a radio signal to travel. That means the lander has to finish all those acrobatic movements on a strange planet millions of kilometers away, all on its own.